So, since it's recording, I'll let it, so if you watch the video, you have this again. If you did not finish your homework, you're going to have to in order to do today's homework. The nice thing is, once you go through and you do that homework, you can show it to me and I'll give you credit for getting it done. So it'll just be marked late in the grade book still, but I will give you a score for it. Okay? Every day for homework for the next 3-4 days, it's going to be based off these 3 problems, these 3 scatter plots. So when I go over this is why I'm recording this right now, when we check our homework. So if you have mistakes, you can go in and fix them. Okay? Our answers for today's. On number 1, when you did your scale, remember to find your scale for the x coordinate or x-axis. You do your largest value, which was 65. We subtracted 25. Should have got 40. We have 12 lines, so you did 40 divided by 12, and that gave us our scale. Zoom in on this graph. When we do our 0, obviously my scale is going up by 4, but obviously I don't want to do 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, because I have a gap. My smallest value is 25. So you should have done your little squiggly between 0 and 25. And remember, that shows us, as a math person, when I read it, that you took your graph and you scrunched it down, so we're not wasting space. And we started at 25. Then I went 29, 33, 37, and I counted by 4. I think we even did this in class together, because I think I had mine switched. Then, on the y-axis, my largest value was 3.5, my lowest was 0.9. You find the range. You take that range, which was 2.6, and we divide it by 12, because there's 12 lines that we have to graph on. And we got 0.22 something. So we rounded up to go by 0.3. Same thing. I started at 0, I did the squiggly, and got to my lowest term, which was 0.9. And we go up by 0.3, 1.2, 1.5, 1.8. Next step, we needed to put a title on our graph, age and data used. We did a label, which was data used, and at the bottom, it should have said age. And then you should go ahead and put all these coordinate points on it. Your graph on number 1, if you look at your coordinate points, should have looked similar to my number 1. F. Number 2. I'm not going to go through all the parts again, but we have our title, fat versus grams. Our y-axis of grams. Looks like we did a little squiggly with the 400. And then at the bottom, we have our fat grams, or our fat. Your graph, if you did your scatter plot right, should have looked similar to this one. Yes? Huh? Y goes up and down. Grams was your y-axis. So when you had your table like this, buddy, where it said fat and grams, the top one is your x and the bottom one is your y. Alright. Number 3. This is going to be helpful because if you miss these, you can go back in our video and make corrections to your mistakes. We had the high school versus grades. High school is your x coordinate, so it's down here. College, your y goes up and down here. And that was our grades. we look at this, here is our graph. It should look similar to this. All right, so once again, if you did not finish yours, go back in our video, see what you have to correct. If you're still confused with how to find the scale, please come see me. Go back to Friday's lesson, watch the video when we did it together. Okay? For today, what I want us to do, everyone needs to go to day 2. Today, our goal is going to be identifying correlation. So mainly, now once we create a scatter plot, what can we tell about it? So every day for the next 4 days is going to continually build on each other. Okay? Make sure you guys understand that. This whole week, everything's building on the day before. Instead of giving you an all new set of data and make you make a new scatter plot and then do the correlation, we're just going to do everything one day at a time. Dylan, you don't need to be on your laptop right now, buddy. So, the first day, yesterday's day 1, we took data and we made a scatter plot. Today, we're going to look at our scatter plot and we're going to see what can we tell about it. So everyone should be on their foldable that you guys, the very first one you open up, that very first sheet, remember when we saw these 4 graphs? And we looked at those and we said, okay, those are 4 types of scatter plots. I'm going to pause our video. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. I want you to turn and talk with your neighbors. And I want you to be able to tell me, what do you notice about each one of them? What is special about this first one? What's special about this one? What's special about this one? And what's special about that one? Okay? Turn, talk to the neighbors for about 30 seconds. What can you guys kind of tell me about each graph? All right, back together, please. So, I just walked over. Dusty he started on something, but he made a little mistake. Dusty, tell us, what was the thing that you guys said in your group? What did you guys notice?
One was up, one was down, one had a curve to it, and then one was scattered, so one was all scattered, so I thought all the other ones were not really scattered.
Okay, so if you guys are looking up here, I'll highlight, then I'll delete this. He was saying, we read graphs left to right. He said, hey, this one went up, this one went down, this one was curved, and then this one was scattered all over the place. So he said, this is the only one that is the scatter plot, because it was scattered. I said, hey, he's on the right track. He's right. That one went up, that one went down, that one was left, that one was totally scattered. The one mistake he's making is all 4 of these were scatter plots. Remember, a scatter plot, if you looked at our very first day, our definition, was a graph that just compared 2 sets of data. And we use it on a coordinate plane. All these do that. All our points are kind of scattered, but we see something kind of trending on all these. If we look at this very first one, Dusty's right. He's seeing that it's going up. What do you think we could say about that? If it's going up, what do you think you could say about it? Exactly. This is how we describe correlation. When we describe the correlation of a scatter plot, you're telling us kind of what the trend is. This one, like a highlighter, make sure you write this in your little foldable, put it right above it. We're going to call this a positive. This is a positive correlation. And what that means, I'm going to put right underneath it, or you can put it aside. What this means is when the X value gets bigger, then my Y value gets larger. A positive correlation on a scatter plot means when my X gets bigger, my Y gets bigger. And that shows me a trend. So it helps me make predictions, which we'll get to in a day. But positive correlation. So if that one's a positive correlation, raise your hand, what do you think this one is?
Negative.
It is a negative correlation. We read left to right still. Negative correlation. When x gets larger, y decreases. And remember, x is always going to be getting larger when we're saying because we read left to right. So we go on our x-axis. When we're going to the right, our x is getting larger. So on both of those two, we've now seen positive and negative correlations. We dealt with those when we did our linear lines, right? You guys remember having linear lines. We did, this is a positive line or a positive line or a positive line. These were negative. That went down. That went down. That went down. Same holds true. This is very important to note. That's going to be one of the number one things that you're going to say when we ask you on today's homework. I'm going to ask you, hey, please identify the correlation, the gaps, the outliers. And you're going to say one of the things you'll say, it's a positive correlation. That lets me know whatever this is talking about. Let's pretend this is talking about, this is your grade. And this is waffles 8. No. I don't believe this is going to. No. I'm just making something hypothetical. I don't believe there's any correlation between waffles and grades. But if I was to see, if I said, hey, I wonder if there's a better breakfast food to eat every day. So I had people eat waffles every day to see if their grades went up. If I said, hey, there's a positive correlation between waffles and grades, that would mean the more waffles you eat, the better your grade was getting. If we did it the same over here, it'd be like waffles and grades. You'd say, hey, the more waffles I ate, the lower my grade was. Do you think that's a real correlation? Do you think waffles are going to impact your score?
No.
So which graph do you think would probably be more about whether waffles and grades are?
That one.
This one?
Uh-huh.
You think if you eat waffles, your grades will go down?
Yeah. They make me fat and then they make me not want to do anything.
Maybe.
I don't like waffles, okay?
Oh, let's listen to Will. What'd you say, Will?
The one that would be all scattered would be more accurate. The waffles is no correlation.
Good. Let's look over here, guys. Stay focused on us. This one. The very right one. This far right one. This is the one that Dusty said that the dots were all over the place. This is called no correlation. Write this on your sheet. No correlation means there's no relationship between the two values. Since I did waffles and grades, this fourth one is probably the waffles and grade one. Your grade did not matter how many waffles you ate. So that's why the dots are all over. There is no upward trend. There's no downward trend. Harrison? We're going to get to that. So this is no pattern. No pattern, no trend. To be honest with you, these are the main three that we look at. We look at either have a positive correlation, one thing affects the other in a positive way, a negative, one affects the other in a negative way, causing it to go down, or they don't correlate to each other at all. When I was doing my head specialist, we used scatter plots all the time. We had a find. We used all of my elementary school to see if students that were extracurricular activities, if it improved their scores on their grades. Now, I don't know. Like, we really didn't know. We were like, well, if you play sports, will your grades be higher or lower? We didn't know, so we took our data and we made a scatter plot. We were looking, if there's a positive correlation, we'd be like, hey, why do kids that play sports get better grades? What's happening there? If it was a negative, oh boy, Y equating is 4. Why does that lower your grade? Well, we found that there's no correlation. It's going to help us in the future make decisions. Businesses will use this because if they're doing this and they find out, hey, their Y is probably their money, their profit, and they go, hey, when we do this, we make more money. When we do this, we lose a lot more money. They probably like, ooh, we probably should avoid doing that. Because they don't want to lose money. Now Harrison asked what the third one is. Any ideas? What's different with the third one compared to 1, 2, and 4? It's curved. That's actually what we're going to call it. We're going to call this non-linear. We're not going to say curved, but we're going to say it's non-linear. This is a curve, and that's what we're going to write underneath here. And we'll see when we start meeting this. It's kind of like it's not making a difference until a certain point. So non-linear means not a straight line. This one, what I'm about to tell you, is going to come in about another day. But when I said non-linear, do you see how I could maybe make this a line? And that could maybe be a line? Can this be a line? No, it'd have to be curved, right? That's what we call non-linear. We'll work on creating a line for these in a day. Okay. I am going to skip this part just for a second. I want to scroll down to make sure we get to this. So, open up your foldable. Is it still the same page? Yeah, it's on the bottom. So you should be on the yellow page, and you should see gaps referred to.
I don't have a yellow page.
Well, yours is okay. All right, so we're going to fill in these blanks before we do an activity today. All right, so the first one. Gaps refer to missing data in a data set. Make sure you fill this out in your notes. That's part of your assignment. So gaps refer to missing data in your data set. Let's look down at here. Here's a scatter plot that's already been completed for us. Are there any gaps?
Yes.
Where? Yeah, right here. All you're going to have to do is we're just going to circle right here. And I'm going to say a gap. So what I would write on here, if I had to identify any gap, they want me to go ahead and say something. When I'm describing my scatter plot, so I'm going to look at two things. I'm going to look at my x-axis and I'm going to look at my y-axis. So my first one, if I look for this gap in this circle, it looks like, I'm going to erase this line in a second. But you see I really don't have any points in between right here and here. Okay? So I will identify this gap between 15 and 25. So I'll say my gap between 15 and 25 on x-axis. You will have to do this today. You're going to look at yesterday's homework and you're going to identify the gap. So I'm going to see in there is that circle. And I looked at my x-axis first. Between here and here. There is no big thing right here. When you look for small gaps, like, ooh, there's nothing between 5 and 7. No, we're looking for gaps, big holes. So that's what we did in this first one. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the y-axis. Between blank and blank on a y-axis. Look at yours and see, can you identify where do you think the gap is on the y-axis? Look at our circle that we identified. What would that be on the y-axis? Okay, if I look at my gap, looks like we're kind of getting stuck. In my gap, see, this is the last point, and then this one. So it's probably right in there. See how I'm missing this information? There's that gap. So you say in between those points, well, what is this point? What do you think that point is on the y-axis going up? What do you think that is? Probably like 32. Here's 30, there's 35, so probably between 32 and what do you think this one is at then? 22? Sure. 22, 23, somewhere there. Our gap, it doesn't have to have like the exact. I'm not expecting you to say 22.75. We're identifying about where is our gap. So you will have to do that today. So make sure you're following along on that. Our gap, once again, was where we had this missing information in here. We found between our x-axis and between our y-axis. So remember, we're going to see when we interpret this later, we're going to be like, wait a minute. If there was a trend, how come there's nothing in there? Like, I would have expected something to be in there. I don't know why not. All right, how about clusters? What do you think a cluster means?
A lot of decimals.
Yeah. Clusters means where a bunch of points are all clustered together. They're all grouped together. If I look at this example, I'm going to identify this as our gap. Do we see any clusters? Do we see any of our dots really bunched up together in one spot?
Not really.
Yeah. Three.
Right there.
Maybe like this?
Yeah.
Kind of. If you said that, I'd probably be okay with that, but to be honest, in this one, you would just say no clusters.
You say like 3 or 1 dot, like 3 or 1 dot, or have an area that'd be close to
Yeah. If we were to say this was a cluster, if you wanted to say that, you would say cluster, and you would say there's a cluster around, and you give the coordinate point. It looks like right in here, so you'd say there's a cluster around 27, 18. Remember, it's not an exact thing, but you're saying right around 27, 18. Axis 27, 18 is my y. There's a cluster right around that area. On this graph, we're not going to say there's a cluster because we're not going to count a cluster with just 2 points. A cluster should be a group of 4 or 5 or so.
I'll use those.
Did you have your plan? You got it? Alright, so on this one, we're not feeling like we have any clusters. Oops, we should write that up there. So, clusters. We're going to go ahead and say clusters are isolated groups. Isolated means the groups are cut away from everything else. They're all just together. And an outlier. Last one we're going to describe. Does anyone know what an outlier is?
Yeah. Yes.
What?
Own little dot.
Yeah. It's outliers are, we're going to say points that do not seem to fit in with the other points. You've heard of like an outsider. An outsider doesn't really hang out with the rest of the group. Well, an outlier is the same thing. It doesn't really stick with the rest of the group. If I look, and I'm going to think about my correlation. What type of correlation do you think we have here? Is it a positive, a negative, a curve, or a nonlinear, or a no?
It's
It's a negative, right? So, if I'm thinking it's a negative, notice all my points should be kind of following along like this. And they're all kind of grouped together. Do we have an outsider?
Yes.
Yeah. What is our outlier?
10 and 15.
X first.
Oh.
15, 10. So I would say right there is my outlier. Identifying the outlier, we would say at 15, 10. This is pretty important, guys. This is going to be one of your main parts of your homework today. Your biggest homework, you're going to have to identify 4 parts of each graph. You're going to tell me, is it a positive correlation, a negative correlation, a nonlinear correlation, or no correlation? And then you're going to identify, you're going to say gaps, equal. Are there gaps? Clusters. Are there clusters and outliers? Okay? Now, it is important that you have your notebook. You guys were supposed to be gluing these in your notebook, and here's why. For today, I'm going to come back to this and show you. Oh, paying attention, please. Okay, here's my notebook. I had my scatter plots. I had this. I should have graphed this in. And then today, we're going to be doing an activity in class for the rest of the class. I'll check it at the end, and then you guys can work on your homework. I'm going to end up gluing this in my notebook. But pay attention, this sheet's too big, so I'm going to have to glue part of it, and I'm going to have to fold it in half, just so it fits in there. Okay? Real quick, while I'm handing this out, gentlemen, while I'm handing this out, I need you to turn back to this. This was the very first sheet that we put in. And your scatter plot. Go ahead and you can tell me, did you turn in it on time? Yes or no? And what did you have struggles with? Is there ever one of these?
I have my planner.
Your badge.
But like I have to go.
If you go without it, then you have to come to lunch. Okay.
Yeah, man, I'm just gonna pull blue around. Yeah, man.
Alright.
Where are you uploading this video?
I put them right onto the OneNote. Okay. Yes. We're gonna do it. Alright, pay attention. Listen up. Here's what we're gonna do. This activity. I'm gonna move this so you can see the page. This is gonna become a competition. Kind of, in sorts. 2 things I want to cover. 1. Oh, did I give you one, Dylan? Here you go. Okay. 1. When you are done with today's activity, I will get glue out, and you may glue these cards onto this sheet. and you can glue it in your notebook. Then you can work on your homework. Your homework due tomorrow. If you did not finish yesterday's, you need to finish yesterday's assignment, the one that was due today. Once you get that graphed in, on each one of these, if you turn to your homework page, everyone turn to your homework page so you know what's going on. Homework tab. On each one of these. Boys, we're taking longer to do things when I have people talking. Okay. On each one, I want you to tell me, what is the correlation? What are the gaps? What are the clusters? And are there any outliers? You will do this. You're going to do it on each one of these. So for number one, your homework, the scatter plot you made. You need to look at number one's homework that you did the scatter plot for. Identify the correlation, the gap, the clusters, the outlier. You go to number two. You need to identify the correlation, the gap, the clusters, the outliers for number two. Gentlemen. And on number three, you have to identify the correlation, the gap, the clusters, the outliers. Okay? So once again, I want to make sure everyone's clear on the homework. You're going to look back at yesterday's homework. I'll even go to my answer key that was on there. I'm going to look at number one, and I'm going to write down what type of correlation is this. Is there any gaps? Yes or no? Where are they at? Aaron, this is your warning to be paying attention before I move you and mark it down. Are there any clusters? Are there any outliers? I then look at my graph for number two. What is the correlation? Right? Correlation identified. Are there any gaps? Are there any clusters? Are there any outliers? I then go to number three. What is the correlation? What is the gaps? What is the clusters? What is the outliers? Not a whole lot of work you have to do. Okay. For the rest of the class, here's your activity that you're going to do on this orange sheet. You're going to have 15 minutes.
15 minutes? We don't leave at 3.
Huh?
Leave at 3.
Yeah, we
You're
can
living
do
six.
Leave at 3.
three.
You're such a liar.
Okay, hold on. Oh, I looked at the wrong one. Okay.
Oh my
We live
goodness. Now we only got
33.
3 minutes.
So, here's what we'll do. It's alright. Take this sheet and make sure you get it glued in. We'll do the activity first thing tomorrow. So, your homework, all you have to do, glue this into your notebook. Glue this into your notebook. And do that homework for day 2. Oh. Remember, homework. Gentlemen, sitting down. No one should be up and leaving. Your homework. Day 2 homework. Determine correlation, gaps, outliers, and clusters off of number 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead, take your class time. You guys can work on it right now.